Welcome, Pit Crew, to another episode of the Pit Podcast. We are here to actually announce new merch that's coming live for you to pick up right now on shop.pitpodcast.com, powered by Royal Shirts. I mean, take a look at this. Look at this. Like, you got balls deep in competition. Like, this is snazzy stuff. You want some of this? Better get them now. They're coming soon. Woo! This is
What is up, Pit Crew? Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Podcast. Today we've got a banger for you. We have our bracket challenge results. If you've been living under a boulder, we've been running the first bracket challenge on our Instagram, pitpodcast_official. And today, the results are in. We've got host Nathan, we've got host Chris today.
balls
joining us,
deep.
Director Michael over here on the couch, and Manager Ian. Ian, do you want to run through the rules and get us kicked off here?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and jump right into it because we're going to have a lot of content to talk about today.
Good idea.
Let's do it.
So-
Let's do it.
Ooh. My monitor's off to the side here, though, so people see me looking over there. They're like, what the heck's wrong with this guy? That's what's up. So anyway, yeah, basically our bracket, for those of you who were living under a rock, follow us at pitpodcast_official. And I don't know, before I go over the rules, I think this might be a fun thing to turn into an annual thing. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe every year revisit it,
Yeah.
especially as the fan base grows and
Fan base
see,
grows, new
see how things
game.
go. New games come into it.
Yep.
But for our first bracket challenge, we took the last 12 most recent FRC games. So from 2025 Reefscape all the way back to 2013 Ultimate Ascent. And we did a 12-team double elimination bracket. And of course, with being a 12-team bracket, we had 4 buys. So we needed to do some initial seeding. So to figure that out, we had our Pit Podcast hosts and staff kind of grade each of those games 1 to 10 stars. And then we kind of looked at the average of those to figure out that initial seeding. Use median as a tiebreaker. There were quite a few that needed the tiebreaker, by the way, interestingly.
Crazy.
Wow.
But we set that up, double elimination bracket. We did, everyone could post. Well, we would post about once a day. I wasn't the best with it, though, because, it takes a lot of time to set those up, and I got other things going on. But had that happen, what did my notes say here? Yeah, so we kept voting opening 1 to 2 days. Commenting was kind of what we did to vote, and then you could also like comments that agreed with you, so kind of help drive up engagement because social media.
Yep.
But we'll go ahead and take a look-see at our initial seating we came up with. So our first 4 were the buys. So we had Steamworks, Cresendo, Rapid React, and First Stronghold were kind of the top 4 as we rated. Then our kind of red bumper teams in our first round of the lower bracket. We had Destination Deep Space, Ultimate Ascent, Aerial Assist, Power Up, and then Reefscape, Infinite Recharge, Charged Up, and Recycle Rush kind of rounded us out. And I guess the disclaimer too, we'll get out of the way now kind of with the seating, right? The criteria was whatever you wanted your criteria to be. So before you completely grill everybody for bad takes, now there is still going to be plenty of bad takes, but just know, someone's perspective might be, oh, how did it look to the audience? Someone's might be how it was strategically. Someone might have been, how fun it was to be an FTAA for, or to be a referee for, or whatever people were. Some of us have maybe a little bias towards, we were a student or mentor on a team that year that did particularly well, so we have more fond memories. So
That's how mine looked.
it's all for fun. This isn't supposed to be the comprehensive objective best list. It was kind of just
Whatever
our
we
own
want. It's our
takes.
podcast. It's however we're going to do it.
Yep. So with that being said, for the first few rounds, because it'll be kind of consistent of what the matchups are, right? After a while, it gets mixed up based on how the results went. Obviously, we had you all, the Pit Crew, do yours on social media. We also had all of our staff and hosts fill out a bracket of their own too, just to kind of compare and contrast, and maybe we can roast each other a little bit. But without further ado, our first matchup, round 1, we had 8-seeded Power Up against 9-seeded Reefscape. Chris, Michael, and Philip. Looks like you guys are team Power Up, and then Pit Crew, Nate, Jason, and myself are team Reefscape.
Power up.
So, anyone want to talk first?
Yeah, Nate, go ahead. Why do you think that Reefscape was better than Power Up? Which is not, but go ahead. Go ahead, Nate.
Because Power Up was only one in auto, and that was it. Power Up had some okay climbs. So the big thing with the Power Up was the buddy climb, right? The buddy climb only happened at really high levels of play, right? So Einstein and maybe even States, there were buddy climbs, and I do appreciate a good buddy climb. They looked cool, but like regular week to week, week 1 through 5, not happening, right? Reefscape cages were cool. I could appreciate a good cage climb, but I had to go with the Reefscape because just the overall, I just think the game edged out. It was really close, right? They're both 8 and 9 seeded games, right? So it was still close for me. I like the cube aspect from Power Up, but I just went with Reefscape for this one. So I think they're both okay games. I don't see either of them as like my number one or maybe even my top 5, but that's about it. Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I was same boat. Power Up for me. It wasn't so much a vote for Reefscape as against Power Up.
Yeah.
Power Up with the kind of being decided in auto most of the time from a strategic
it's
perspective.
the lesser of worse evils.
It was like just not that fun for me. Buddy climbs were awesome. I think the idea behind the Power Up gimmick was cool. I think they kind of brought it up and did a much better job with it with the amplification and Cresendo, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But Reefskip I really wasn't a fan of either. It was a pick and place game, and a game I thought was a cool engineering challenge, but it was very difficult to watch from an audience perspective, I feel. And with kind of the not really having to cross the field, maybe made it a little more less exciting too versus some of the other games. But
there was more strategy in Power Up though. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
You got to time everything and when you want to use your power ups and then when to place your cubes to tip your scales, right?
Yeah.
Reefscape, what I'll give them is that the only other aspects that was really enjoyable, unfortunately only being at the higher levels, was the algae play. You had to grab algae and get the majority in your barge to basically win the match. The climb itself was so bad. So bad. It's like you only had 2 inches to climb up to get the climb versus Power Up. You had to climb a considerable distance.
I think it was 14 inches.
14 inches, yeah. Plus, for teams that had the buddy climbs, it was sick. That was sick.
Yeah, because if, like, say their bumpers are hanging slightly lower, you got to get their bumpers above it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're
So
really
high.
climbing probably 18 inches just to be safe there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which fair disclosure though, these 2 games are not great.
No, it's 8 9 seed. It's close.
My pick for Power Up was I was a student at the time and on Drive Team, so there was a lot of strategy to it, and a strategy is what I love in the games. But and for me, Reefscape wasn't even entertaining until playoffs of Worlds. Like the auto from Strikeforce, probably the best auto all year. Just because of how out of pocket it was. I don't know another interesting auto other than maybe Jack in the Bot.
Yeah.
I think maybe the one thing with Reefscape autos kind of having to line up or like the object recognition potentially aspect of, human players actually interacting in auto. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, it's pretty much if you didn't have vision in Reefscape, you weren't even making playoffs.
Yeah.
So
it would be tough too. Yeah.
All right.
Very tough.
We'll definitely see these 2 games again later in our matchup here because we're in our upper bracket. But we'll go ahead and look at our next matchup. 5-seeded Destination Deep Space went up against our lowest seed in here. We have Recycle Rush. Chris and Jason going Recycle Rush. Pit Crew and the rest of our staff here going Deep Space. So I think without further ado, we probably need to talk with Chris to understand his thoughts on Recycle Rush.
Let me give the caveat for Deep Space, okay? Deep Space was another boring game to watch. All you had was picking up the panels and putting it onto the rocket ships, and then you had the cargo balls putting it into whatever spot, right? That aspect of it was so boring, and everybody more or less ran the similar design, right? center mechanism to grab the hatch panel, and then you had an elevator or an arm, telescoping arm, to place it onto the rocket ships, and that's it. There was not that many protected. There was actually no protected zones other than the hab climbs. So the placement of those pieces made it so boring to watch. And when there was defense, it was just, well, this defense is not fun enough to where you're just blocking them off from scoring. So there's no scoring, and the interactions were so tight because there was just not that much room to drive around in. Versus Recycle Rush, this game, as many have claimed it, and to be fair, I agree, it's the best engineering designing game of all time.
That is a hot take. Sorry.
Every other game, teams were either copying from each other or they're taking similar ideas and modifying it to their own, not original ideas. Recycle Rush had original ideas, where you even look at MSC, for example, right? You had teams that had elevators. You had teams that had intakes that would go into a lifter and to pick up the totes, right? But then you had teams like 17-18, they're dual 6-stack they could do. Freaking Killer Bees' extending can grabber that they can grab. And you had like Bedford Express 548's, thing that grabbed the tote onto a rolling I forgot what their mechanism is, right? But it's like they have hooks that goes onto a spinning elevator type of deal. That was just so cool. And at higher levels of play, the race of stacking totes was really cool.
So you mentioned in Deep Space, everybody was copying designs off each other.
More or less.
You don't think anybody copying each other's can grabbers in Recycle Rush was the same thing?
But they're can grabbers, right? So the can grabbers was a major component that well, let me explain it this way. You had to grab the cans, and when you grabbed the can grabbers, it elevated the game to where it was enjoyable to watch. Versus Deep Space, when you took like 1684's wheel middle intake, that was cool, right? But it wasn't exciting to watch. Like, it was just part of a mechanism that
I would rather watch more matches of Deep Space than Recycle Rush. I would rather go through a full season of Deep Space than Recycle Rush, and that's all I gotta say.
I'd have to agree. Like, and going on your defense comment, like, a good defense shut down an entire alliance in Deep Space, and watching those teams play that level of defense, that's awesome. That's a great show.
I'd rather watch good defense than no defense.
Exactly. Right. Like, and even at MSC going to 5, tying on every single account, like, that was awesome.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
True.
That's
MSC
one of the coolest States moments ever.
True.
Like, Recycle Rush is bad.
I'll be Jason real quick. I liked Recycle Rush because my team was good. Which credit, Robostangs were really good. They're we actually watched MSC finals in 2015 yesterday, and Robostangs were in states finals, so they did have a phenomenal robot for that year for Recycle Rush. So I can understand why Jason picked Recycle Rush.
Yeah, Recycle Rush, like you said, I think it was a very interesting game engineering wise, without the restrictions of worrying about defense, or even there was no bumpers. I also think it was kind of interesting because, if I'm not mistaken, there wasn't really a win or a loss. It was kind of your point average.
Yeah. That's how teams were ranked, was based on average.
So it's definitely unique, but for me, no.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, whatever.
Upper bracket match number 3. We got 7 seed Aerial Assist versus 10 seed Infinite Recharge. So Aerial Assist, we had our pit crew, Nate, Jason, Ian, and Filip going that way. Infinite Recharge, Chris and Michael giving it the nod over the 2014 special. So, Nate, I think you were the only one of us actually around in 2014. So I don't know if you want to speak at all to your decision for Aerial Assist.
I think, in my opinion, the game was so empty and undefined, right? There's wide open field, literally nothing on the field at all. No obstacles, no nothing. You had one ball that you had to share between your alliance. It just reminded me a lot of other modern sports that we have right now, like football. I think football is probably the biggest one that it reminded me of. Um, so it, in my opinion, and yeah, having played the game as a student, it allowed for more strategies, and there were different robot archetypes that were around that season, right? So you had your inbounder robot that had to take the ball and get that first pass it off. You had your truss shooting robot to, shoot it over the truss and get that 10 points. Throw it to your human players, get the catch. Then you had your final shooting robot to actually score. And just what you could do and how to pass was just so unique. You could pass in your first zone and then go to your white and then truss shot. You could, as we we're getting towards worlds, you could truss shot and then we're shooting horizontally across the field to the other human player and then scoring. Yeah. We had robots like NC Gears that I was reminded of who were sitting in front of the low goal and shooting into the upper goal. So all they had to do was sit there and their human player would feed them. And just the robot archetype and the uniqueness of so many robots was all over the place. It was awesome to see so many different robots and to see so many different strategies for that year. I wish I could have seen more of Infinite Recharge. I don't think Infinite Recharge is a bad game, but I think Aerial Assist I would rather watch over Infinite Recharge.
I'll say too, to a pro to Aerial Assist, right? Like the lineups for the drive teams to be able to do the truss pass and stuff, the precise movement you would have to have, because you got to think this is like before your camera systems and stuff, before photon vision, before limelight. Like it's super difficult to kind of do that stuff just with your eyes.
Yes,
it was a driver's game.
Yeah, that alone is impressive.
I was a driver that year, and depending on which station you're in would totally affect your line of sight to try to hit, because it wasn't just hit your human player. There was also poles on top of the trusses to keep track of where the field perimeter was. So if you hit that pole, that ball's going off to the left or right. So you had to be very precise to hit that. So
and for our viewers too, this is pre-swerve drive. Like I think Strike Force was the only team in the world who had swerve drive that year.
Roboteers.
Okay. Like it was not common. So it's like to be able to line up with a tank drive, like
and sabotage.
It's impressive.
Sabotage.
Roboteers and sabotage.
It's impressive.
I guess which the nod for both of these games. I'm surprised of how low they're ranked.
Yeah,
it should have been way higher, right? And Aerial Assist, right? It's a driver's wet dream, open field, and just pure driver skill. That's awesome. You had some of that with Infinite Recharge, as well. There was only three protected zones that drivers cannot contact, but most of the field was open space to where you could manipulate your bot however you see fit to either cycle, to shoot, or even defense if there was any, right? Infinite Recharge, there was a lot of strategy that would have been flushed out all the way up to Worlds, where of who's going to be the shooter, who's going to be the passer for the cells, right?
Well, I don't think we saw any passing strategies, or at least I didn't.
Well, passing,
but passing is an interesting concept for it.
Well, Engine Nerds back in when they competed at their first two events, they had their partners. They literally drove up to the Wheel of Fortune, trademarked. So right? color wheel, right? They sat at the very end of the color wheel. Their partners would just pass them the the cells, and they're just basically full court right into the goal. And that was their strategy, just to constantly keep on shooting. They didn't even move for most of the match until the climbing. And the climbing aspect of it was awesome.
Yeah.
You had to you had theoretically 3 bots to balance on the coat hanger to get those points was awesome.
I'll say the sucky part about the climb, like I love the teeter-totter, the coat hanger, right? But you pretty much only had a telescope.
Yeah.
2 telescopes, grab, pull down. That's pretty much it. Like there wasn't a lot of uniqueness, but I guess that can be the case for a lot of climbing games, right?
One quick thing, 573 back in Southfield had a Robo Wrangler's buddy climber that they would pop out, Velcro, and they
grab onto the bumper.
grab the bumper, suck in the kit bot, and then you had 2 bots climbed.
Yeah.
That one match.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
I'll say the coolest part for Infinite Recharge for me is the high goal, right? How it had the outside and the inside.
Yeah, the inner goal.
Yeah, if you were super precise, you could get that. That's just like a unique kind of scoring that I feel like, because a lot of times like your balls are going to hit each other inside the goal and bounce off, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you get those little extra points, and like that's a match that's a different, like that's a decider right there.
All right. So next one, what do we got? It's match 4. So we had 6-seeded 2013 Aerial Assist going up against our Cinderella story in the bracket, and apparently for a good number of our staff too, 11-seeded.
That's Ultimate Ascent.
Charged up. So
It's
Nate,
Ultimate
Chris,
Ascent
Michael.
versus Charged Up.
Yeah.
You said
Go.
Aerial Assist.
Oh, Ultimate Ascent.
Yeah.
They're the same game in my head. That was before my time. So Ultimate Ascent. Ultimate Ascent. So that's Nate, Chris, Michael. Charged Up was our fan vote pit crew, as well as Jason, myself, and Filip. So I'm kind of going to be a 1v3 here, and I'm going to be wrong too, objectively.
What do you think?
So
What do you think?
Go for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Why don't you start us off?
Charged Up for me, and disclaimer again, kind of like I mentioned at the start, right? For me, that was my first year back mentoring 818, and we made it to Einstein, finished third in the world with our partners, the Bucks Wrath from Maine, and the Robo Wranglers down in Texas, and the Dragons too, another great Michigan team from Lake Orion. But I like the 3 in a row, the link aspect. I think that was fun. I think engineering wise, it probably was pretty basic with the cone and cube. Like a lot of that could be done with one mechanism. It was cool to see the clever ways people come up with it, but it was, I mean, there was 2 different game pieces, but it felt like it was very easy to kind of just treat them as one. Same thing, the end game / the end game also worked in auto too. The charge station with docking and engaging, it was different than, the traditional grab and pull up elevator climbs we see usually in different forms, which I liked, but it was also just kind of somewhat boring to watch. It Charged Up is definitely not my winner game, but Ultimate Ascent, I think the biggest thing I have against that is I just wasn't there for it, so I don't truly respect it in the way it probably should be. I think that's probably the case for a lot of our pit crew as well.
Yeah,
but we see even with Aerial Assist and those 2, the older games tend to struggle a bit. So you all like frisbees, so
It had frisbees, and it had
a pyramid.
It had everything.
It had everything
It had
you wanted
everything.
in a game.
It
There's
was a
defense,
perfect game.
open field, climbing aspect, and shooting. And the fun thing about it is that, at least the climbing aspect of it, not everyone did the full pyramid climb, which for context, each alliance had 2 pyramids. There are 3 levels you can climb on. And if you're able to climb on the very top of the pyramid, you had another top pyramid goal, like where you could slap down 4 of your alliance colored frisbees to score more points. But the climbing itself wasn't a crutch. You didn't have to do that in order to score points. Teams found a way to only climb on the first level and make up those point difference based on shooting
With the frisbee. Yeah.
with the frisbee, right?
I'll say too, just seeing hard frisbees full court being launched across, that's some of the cool stuff you'll ever see in first.
100% agree.
And to counter your charged up point, right? You said the design of it wasn't that good, right? Like you could do the same manipulator. Like we had a pinch system, right? Like I don't think the design aspect was so much in the end effector, but it's how you got to place
That's
it.
true.
Yeah. So like High Tide having the sideways elevator, or like the telescopes, or the double extensions. Like there are so many different unique robots that year, which it was close between the 2, but Ultimate Ascent's just the perfect game in my opinion.
I agree with that. Ultimate Ascent was another game that I played. It was my freshman year. It had everything. It had, in my opinion, the hardest climbing that I think we've had ever. And climbing that pyramid was tough. We racked our brains against the wall for several days trying to figure out how to do it. And we never figured out how to do it until we saw other teams do it.
Seeing the game animation for that and thinking like 2013 robot era, that would be really impressive to see pulled off.
This is all before modern elevators and telescoping arms. still, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what the major mechanism to get up there was. But this is another game again, like aerial assist, where you had robot archetypes, you had full court shooters, you had runners going back and forth and to shoot the frisbee's most common robot. You had cleanup robots that had ground intake, which was again really hard to do.
Yeah.
And then you had pyramid climbers to get up the pyramid and score there, which were also usually full court shooters. So the strategy and the alliance selection for this game was also awesome to watch.
Yeah, there was so many options you could pick strategy wise.
Yeah,
Versus
great
charge
game.
up, cycle, go place.
Yeah. Yep.
Stupid.
Yep.
Stupid.
I will disclaim for everybody one more time before we move to our next slide. Don't ever listen to anything I say about robot design. I'm a marketing director, so don't blame me too bad in the comments. I'm aware I'm awful at it. Okay, so now we're kind of gonna try to keep going with this sort of format. We're kind of in round 2 of the upper bracket now, so we're kind of gonna look at the buys now. That'll tie in. So we'll probably have the slide up in a second. You'll see there's obviously branching paths, right? Because we each chose different ones. So we're kind of going to show both, permutations of who voted for what over what. So if we want to pull up this slide here, Philip. So
match 5.
Match 5, we'll see. So kind of the top are people who did Steamworks versus Power Up. The bottom's people Steamworks versus Reefscape. So Philip and Michael took Steamworks over Power Up. Chris stuck Power Up. And then all of us that voted Reefscape in round 1. So Jason, Nate, me, and Pit Crew go with Steamworks. So I say we stay with the interesting contrarian part of it here. Power Up, Chris. Why Power Up over Steamworks?
Steamworks, there was no strategy behind it, right? fill up the gears, right? And if you could shoot, and then climb. That's it. There's no really strategy, right? The shooting aspect of Steamworks was awesome, but because of how little points that they contributed, you could only really do that in playoffs, right? And then the climb was whatever, right? You had a rope, you had a Velcro, motor, and rope. That's it. Whatever, right? Power Up, you had options, right? And now, of course, right, back before, everything was decided on in auto. So after auto, it's like whatever, right? But at least you had climbs, buddy climbs. You also had the power ups to manipulate the score based on how you see fit, and placement of, different places of where to score the cubes based on the randomizer, based on the FMS. And I think that aspect of it was more balanced than Steamworks, provided, of course, auto being deciding the factor of matches, right? But
I think all 3 of these games suck. So it's picking the worst of the lesser of the evils.
No, I think Steamworks. Yes, the fuel only came out in like a tiebreaker, like your really close matches, but it was just the sheer pace of everything and like the honestly kind of unique robots, right? Like the teams who could pick up the gear off the ground. That was super unique. The hoppers that actually extended outside of their robot.
Mm-hmm. That was cool.
It was just unique.
Cool. That was cool.
And to see humans interacting on the center of the field, it was awesome. So just watching it, I think, was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all 3 of these games, watching it is probably the best for me, at least.
Yeah, I was obviously Team Steamworks too. Definitely see the qualms with it. I think fuel was, our robot was one of a handful that did low fuel because it was worth like 1/9 of a KPA, so you needed to score 9 to get 1 point.
Yeah.
But the way that game was, where it was like 40 points a rotor, 50 points a climb. Assume both alliances get, especially at the districts, because our team wasn't very good that year. And you get 2 rotors up and going, and you have like say an even number of climbs. That 1 pressure point would be the difference.
Yep.
I really wish we could have made fuel more valuable to have more teams pursue that obstacle, but sucks. Okay, next matchup, we have our upper bracket round 6. So that was Stronghold, the 4 seed, getting the bye against either Deep Space or Recycle Rush. So everyone that advanced Deep Space advanced Stronghold. So Pit Grenady and Michael Philip. Chris and Jason advanced Recycle Rush in the first round, and they continue Recycle Rush over Stronghold.
No, I think they're just wrong.
I think they're just trolling at this point.
Yeah.
We don't need to
Stronghold
talk about
was
this,
the
right?
first of like some of the most unique games First has ever had.
Yeah.
Like the honest start of what I would consider the golden period of First. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
themed
Yeah.
period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree with that. I agree
Yeah.
with that. I mean, Stronghold did have like you could pick your own obstacles
Yeah.
and then shoot and climb if teams did so. That was awesome, right? So I would give that game props for that. But Recycle Rush at Worlds, for example, 1114 had their Kiwi drive, right? And then 148, 2 whole robots that they had, right? Plus their third pick having the Team 900, 4 crossbows shot out to try to grab all 4 can grabbers, although never used in a match.
Yeah, they only showed videos of it. They
Videos,
never
yeah.
used it. Yeah.
Did pass inspection though, so it was competition legal. But again, the robot design of that versus right.
Yeah, I'll
It's-
agree. It had some good
That's my
design.
reasoning, right? The robot design aspect.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Stronghold, I think the configuration of different defenses made scouting fun. And I think it was interesting to see robots trying to make mechanisms to overcome all of them as well as do the boulders.
Mm-hmm.
And beach bots in the finals, like falling down twice and still managing to get the park. That was
Yeah.
cool. So
I'd love to see Stronghold come back in the swerve era, what that would look like.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be tough. Like, do you pick the swerve over because of the obstacles, right?
Yep.
Some of the obstacles you just can't use swerve
Couldn't-
against
yeah.
unless you have like an assist bar or something.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting what teams would do.
It'd be really interesting. All right, keeping things moving. Upper bracket match 7. So that was 2-seeded Cresendo going up against either Aerial Assist, our 7-seed, or Infinite Recharge, the 10-seed. So Nate sticking with Aerial Assist, everybody else opting Crescendo.
Aerial Assist had more strategy. Done.
Yeah, I can
Done.
see that. But it's the Crescendo at least, right? Like the trap aspect of it. The amplification, it's just more unique.
The
The
amp
amps are cool.
itself
Yeah.
was-
I understand it was a unique game. Yeah, amp's cool, trap's cool, climbing's cool, the chain, that's cool. I would rather see a last second high goal buzzer beater winning shot than a bunch of robots hanging and dangling from a chain.
With a
That's all I
last
gotta
second
say.
game-winning trap note.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or a human player microphone.
But the trap note's just the trap
Yeah,
notes.
the
you climb
microphone
up.
to get
No,
the win,
mic.
like-
The mic is dumb. I'm sorry.
Dumb.
No.
Yeah, I
They
don't
had
like-
match affecting scores if
They
you
did.
missed it on the mic or not, right? Versus 2014 bounce pass or pass to a ball to a bot.
the human player in Aerial Assist was much more important than the human player in Crescendo.
Outside of the person on the app, I can agree with that.
The amp and
Because if you were the
the
person,
notes, yeah.
like if you're the person doing the amplification, right? Like
It was
you're
really important to time that.
yeah, like if
perfect.
you didn't have proper timing, your alliance was just lost out of one cycle, or potentially, right? Like
The human players for Aerial Assist had to throw the actual the one and only ball game piece into the field and let their
That's true.
robots play, right? That's pretty important too. But Aerial Assist strategy for me was just much next
think
level than
Crescendo
Crescendo.
there was more strategy behind Crescendo, and there was
No.
more involved.
No.
There was more involved than aerial assist.
No.
okay,
So
There was like two
whatever.
strategies for Crescendo. There was like a ton
He
for
has
Aerial
two
Assist.
strategy, but okay.
I think we're going to talk a lot more about Crescendo later on as people go through their
Yep.
individual brackets. So we'll save some of my thoughts on that for then too, because I want to make sure we keep us moving. Last one, we're kind of going to look at everyone on the individual basis, like this sort of format. So 3-seed Rapid React against either Ultimate Ascent or Charged Up. Now, interestingly, we all voted to decide this would be the 3-seed,
Yeah.
yet only Michael opted for it over our 6 and 11 seeds.
Mhm.
So, and I don't want to spoil what's to come, but Rapid React did not live long in many people's brackets.
Unfortunately.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of this.
so I'll defend Rapid React first, I guess, since it shot down like a rock. But
I would have picked Rapid React over Charged Up.
yeah, yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Yeah, Ultimate Ascent, it's hard because Ultimate Ascent is really like a perfect game, right? But Rapid React being the first, like pretty
came out
much
of
the
COVID.
first game where Cot Swerve was readily available. The sheer fast pace of it, and just you're shooting your alliance colored balls into a hoop, right? But it's to actually have like a turreted shooter, right? It's the traversal was cool, and state champs, like I'm gonna back Rapid React here.
I like Rapid React. I don't think it's a bad game. I think I put it pretty decent in my bracket, my personal bracket, but like I said, I would pick Rapid React over Charged Up, but Ultimate Ascent has my heart for this one.
It's not much to say. I mean, Rapid React, it's an awesome game. Open field, centerpiece goal, and then the traversals was awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's just that Ultimate Ascent was just so perfect.
It was a perfect game.
Yeah.
Ultimate Ascent, great game.
Why'd you pick Charged Up?
Stupid.
Why did I pick Charged Up?
Yeah. Such a stupid pick.
Genuine.
Genuinely, Rapid React for me, I just found it to be a very boring game. I feel like they made it a boring game knowing that, we were just coming out of COVID and a lot of kids had a lot less experience. They wanted to maybe keep things easier, keep team numbers up. That's my personal theory. I don't know if there's any backing whatsoever. I thought the climbing was really cool, like the traversal ascending monkey bars, kind of 2013-esque in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me, just seeing giant tennis balls being scored
But I'll have to counter to that. Like, a shooter is not an easy design, right? Like if you're looking for an easy design, I would have done Charged Up, like a simple pick and place. It would be so much easier coming off of COVID, right? But maybe they didn't have the idea yet, so we're not game designers. So.
Yeah, I think for me, I also value. I don't know. I already mentioned the 2 game pieces for Charged Up ended up being treated very similar, but just to have it be 1 game piece, it always just makes it feel a little more one-dimensional to me.
Yeah,
in my opinion. It wasn't a bad game. I thought it worked out decently well, but just kind of made me go, eh. Also, every bots when they would climb, or is that what it's called? Every bot, the 1118 does. They'd just barely be off the ground, which was really annoying to try to figure out. Like even as a scout in the stand, like did they climb? Did they not climb? Like anyway. All right. So our next slide we'll pull up here. This one's kind of a mess. So all 7 of our groups we're looking at, these are the games that essentially finished tied for last. They were the first 4 to exit from the bracket in the first round of the lower bracket. So definitely seeing some trends. Looks like Chris and Jason are the both let Recycle Rush live beyond, a 2 and out situation, or 2 losses right away.
Power up to
I'm surprised a lot of Reefscape going out in the first round.
A lot of Reefscape out, a lot of Infinite Recharge.
Especially for our pit crew, right? Like this is the game you guys are competing in right now. So I'm kind of surprised it was out in the first round.
Yeah, out pretty quick, yeah. Infinite Recharge may it just miss the mark for a lot of people.
Yep.
I think kind of interesting, our 4 seed and our 5 seed collectively, Stronghold and Deep Space, those were the 2 highest seeded games eliminated by anybody. Chris took them both out after 1 round. So Chris, do you have, and I don't have the matchups listed here for what they were going up against, but Stronghold and Deep Space out so soon?
Deep Space was it's just.
I can see Deep Space.
He talked about it. He talked about the shutdown.
My only thing with Stronghold is that I've got personal connections of how Stronghold was created. It was dumb. I hated it. It was an okay game to watch and strategize, but holy crap. With the other games, I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
All right.
I couldn't do it.
All right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pit crew, leave comments on who you want to flame for this, because we're just going to kind of skip over it.
Oh, he's got hot takes, yeah.
All right. So we'll also really quickly, because I just saved our top 6 for the individual brackets. So 7 and 8, here's who we kind of had eliminated at that point. So Chris again had a highest seeded out. He took out Steamworks, our 1 seed. Nate took out 2 seed Cresendo.
No, you're wrong.
Pretty quick. Other than a lot of Deep Space going out here, the rest of the Rapid Reacts filtered out. I think none of them outside of I think Michael's might have survived to the final 6, but Infinite Recharge fairly quickly pretty much eliminated too. So
But like you said, the one game piece, it's hard for students and stuff to be engaged.
Yeah.
In the stands. So,
but we'll go ahead and I think we'll just kind of have everyone talk about their top few games. So here's Chris's kind of last little bit of the bracket. Cresendo taking the victory, Infinite Recharge second place, Power Up third. Looks like Ultimate Ascent in fourth, Aerial Assist, Recycle Rush in the tie for fifth, sixth. So interesting to see Recycle Rush that deep. And Infinite Recharge runner up, I think also kind of, I think you're the only one that had it going remotely that deep. So do you want to just talk us through the bracket in general, Chris? Any of your thoughts on these games?
Well, Cresendo is one of the best recent FRC games of all time. Recent, I mean, right? It had everything we wanted. It had in my opinion, the most deep strategy-ridden game that a strategist could think of, right? You had a time of who's going to cycle, who's going to amp, who's going to be the cleanup crew, right? And then do you even want to do the passing strategy, or do you want a full court cycle, right? All those defense, too. You had so many options in that game to really push your alliance to a win. And I think that Cresendo is one of the top games that First has created. Infinite Recharge, similar idea to Cresendo, is that it's just so much options, right? And the level of play would have been raised to the bar when it came to Worlds, right?
Just never got its chance.
Never got its chance, right? And Ultimate Ascent,
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. Infinite Recharge never really had its chance. I don't know if I would have been putting it at the way top, but it would have been really, really exciting to see how Einstein would played out.
I'm surprised for how much you're talking about the design of Recycle Rush, though.
Yeah.
For how low you had it. Yeah. I thought it was at least going to make it past Infinite Recharge, but it's also, we didn't really see that game much.
Yeah.
So,
The game itself, Recycle Rush, wasn't as fun as Infinite Recharge.
Oh, shit.
That was like a really loud fakish slap. Okay.
Me next. Okay.
We got Nate next. So Aerial Assist out on top over second place Stronghold, third place Ultimate Ascent, Rapid React in fourth, Steamworks and Reefscape.
Yeah, you can see the classics won out for me. I think Stronghold is better than Steamworks. It had cool strategy with the defenses. Aerial Assist, much more strategy than Ultimate Ascent. Reefscape, not as cool as Ultimate Ascent. That makes sense. I'd rather see Rapid React than Steamworks, yeah. And yeah, just Aerial Assist, just strategy. Just unlimited strategy. Open field, you can do anything you want with the ball. You can run any type of play. You can draw anything. Okay, that's the big thing with Aerial Assist for me. You can do anything. It's a ball, put it in the goal, make the magic happen. That's it. No climbing, no gimmicks, no nothing. Just do it.
So your bracket came down to a no-nonsense strategy-based game.
Just do whatever you want.
I think it's interesting because he says you can do anything, and I think that makes sense. In my mind, though, why I was so tough on Aerial Assist, and again, I wasn't there for it, and I don't watch extensive amounts of old footage. For me, I'm like, it's not you can do anything. You can do one thing. You can pass a giant ball around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's my opinion of it.
Draw the play. Draw whatever play you want. There's no lanes. There's no avenues. There's no nothing. Wide open field. Do whatever.
It's like
double defense.
Football or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything you want.
Okay, Ben Johnson.
Done.
Reporting is eligible. Dan Skipper, baby.
Yeah.
All right. So Jason's not here, as if everyone.
Let's go, Jason.
He has
Steamworks. Let's go.
Steamworks over Stronghold, Cresendo in third. I will point out something interesting. You'll see his match 20 in the lower bracket. He had Stronghold, Recycle Rush, and Stronghold out on top. For those who don't remember, he had Recycle Rush beat Stronghold in the upper bracket. So he kind of flipped his mind halfway through the activity.
Okay.
He obviously isn't here to talk about it too much, but I think this is it's Jason's bracket. I mean,
it's his bracket. Yeah, I don't have to agree with it.
He enjoyed the airships.
He did enjoy the airships, and I think his opinions on Recycle Rush probably similar to yours, Chris, as well as like you mentioned earlier, Nate.
But he had it further in the lower bracket because 548 was state champs.
State champs.
I'm surprised he didn't bring it farther. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'd take Stronghold over Recycle Rush. Recycle Rush over Deep Space, I can see the argument for that a lot easier than that over Stronghold.
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
part of the matchup.
This makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My own bracket. So Cresendo out on top over Stronghold, Steamworks in third. Deep Space somehow got to fourth. Charged Up and Aerial Assist chilling there as well. I did the same thing as Jason. I kind of advanced Steamworks over Stronghold first, then Stronghold over Steamworks the second time. Because depending on how I look at those games, like I can see it both ways. It's, I think we talked about a little already. Steamworks, I think the gimmick of the people on the field was very fun, with the airships and all that. But Stronghold, I think generally strategically just it was able to make the comeback in the lower bracket. You know, it was able to draw up the play a little bit better. Deep Space for a pick and place, I generally liked, just because again, 2 game pieces. There's kind of the strategy of the null panels a little bit in auto with the way the balls dipped out.
I forgot about those. Yeah,
that was also my first year volunteering and not as a student. I think that helped me have a little bit of fun too. Definitely a lot of personal influence, influencing that. Same thing Charged Up. I know some people don't like it at all. We already talked about why that one's a little special to me. But Cresendo, I think Chris nailed it on the head earlier. Strategy there with the amp and the different ways to draw it up. Maybe not as many ways as 2014, but you know, are we passing? Are we cleaning up? Full court shot? How are we maximizing our time amplified and getting the maximum shots when amplified? There's just a lot of different ways to play it.
Multiple options how to do that too.
And
especially in the early weeks too, when people were still figuring out what a good strategy is for that game. Like it evolved a lot throughout the season.
I really like the amp. It was only the 1 game piece, but you had 2 very different things to do with it, which I think was kind of helped mitigate that. Endgame could have been cooler. We didn't see many traps, and climbing the chain felt not necessarily trivial, but not as complicated as pulling off like a buddy climber, the cage even maybe. So that was my thoughts. All right. Next up, we got Michael. Steamworks on top over Power Up. Cresendo a deep run, Stronghold a deep run as well.
So mine, a lot of my picks came from my experiences with the game. So Power Up and Steamworks, I was both on Drive Team for. Steamworks being really my second ever game, right? Stronghold was my first game. And it's so unique. You got the airships, you got a decent climb, right? Kind of boring, but still it's unique.
It was very unique. Yeah.
Yep. And then for the teams that had the intro to swerve or whatever, or the gear off the ground, like they dominated. It was so cool to see them play. Power Up, we said it was decided in auto. But personal opinions, Drive Team. Let's go. It was fun to drive. It was fun to drive. It was cool seeing the scale and stuff.
I see your perfect game ever, Ultimate Ascent, didn't last too long, huh?
No. Hey, neither did my state champs. So.
True. I think I'd be pretty torn with Stronghold versus Ultimate Ascent too. I really enjoyed those games.
Hardest decision in this entire bracket was probably Rapid React versus Power Up.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it's like, do I back my team or do I back my drive when I was on Drive Team, right? Like, and then Cresendo was just unique, and I didn't do Drive Team during the season, but I did off season, and it was super fun to try and work up some strategies and stuff like that. Like,
a lot of options,
it was just fun.
Yep.
Awesome. I don't know, Philip, do you want to come over to this side of the table?
Now, Philip, this is just bad, Philip. This is just bad.
We might cut this, or we might not.
We'll see. The transition.
We'll see what happens in editing.
The transition is as Philip is walking in, he sits down, he knocks over Michael's water.
I had to explain to Michael how to put the overlay in the corner, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully he understands.
Everybody welcome Editor Philip.
Welcome Editor Philip.
Are you going to show me now?
At some point.
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
He totally gets it.
Double bracket time.
Yeah.
There's Philip.
Sorry.
Okay.
All
All right.
All right, Philip. Why
So,
are you
Philip-
wrong?
Charged Up on top over Steamworks, Cresendo third, Rapid React fourth, Stronghold power up, a little love as well from you. So
Why?
So when Ian was explaining that some of us have different opinions on games, that's me. Like I enjoyed some games as a student, sure, but as a volunteer, I do not give a shit about what the robots are doing. I'm sorry, but I'm just paying attention to, are the robots moving? Good. Yes, good. And then, is the field in one piece? So Charged Up had a lot of problems. The charge station was constantly either falling apart or getting stuck. And then, you know how there was like that cable thing with the big thing? And
Oh, I
everyone
forgot
was
about
going
that.
through that little
I forgot
passage.
about that.
And everyone kept hitting the cable bump
Yeah.
and moving the wall segment back. And frequently the zip ties holding the wall together would pop. And then I would have to quickly throw a zip tie on it, you know, while there's no robots around, because, you know, safety, to try to keep the field together so that we wouldn't have to e-stop and replay the match and then, you know, run like 45 minutes late.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. Also, I made like a portable air tank to do rivets faster whenever one of the flaps got ripped off. That was cool too. So that's why Charged Up is my favorite game overall.
So you have more stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like Cresendo was pretty good. But you don't see Reefscape at all because Reefscape was super boring. Nothing ever broke.
Yeah.
And it's like, this year I've just been sitting doing nothing and it's boring. I quite liked Steamworks too because of the you know, the gimmick of the human players on the field. And I didn't actually volunteer that year, but I heard setup was a catastrophe. But
Yeah, it was something.
if I actually volunteer, it would probably be a little lower.
Yeah. I think I remember the whole airship being almost one piece. That you had
Yeah.
to fit in the trailer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was something.
I like the idea though that everyone's clamoring. Oh, human on field.
I mean, it was pretty,
It was mind breaking at the time.
and it still is. We haven't done it again.
I haven't done it since. Gosh,
Imagine-
I don't
like-
think we ever will.
with how fast these swerve robots are, yeah, you could take someone out really quick. It'd be a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, they definitely had safety precautions to make sure everyone was safe up there, but I feel like it'd be even more difficult to take proper safety precautions at this point.
Yeah.
Because imagine if there is like something that happens to a human player, like a medical emergency. It's a lot harder to get to them and help them versus just behind the
Ooh,
driver wall,
True.
you know?
Yeah.
Because you have to actually
stop it.
stop the match, get up on the field,
Right.
climb up onto the thing. Whereas if something happens to a driver, well, you can just go to them.
Right.
You don't have to do anything.
Yep. That's true.
Yep.
Neat.
Any other, what's the word? Controversial things I did?
I don't think so.
No, I know that
I'm okay
It's
with
on
most
par
of
of
it.
why you're wrong. So
All right.
I think it's really standard outside of the
Charged
up.
Yeah.
If you just ignored charged up and you advanced everything else as is, I think it'd be a pretty good take.
All right.
All right. Last but not least, and this one's not really a surprise for our viewers.
Are you sure? Oh, to the viewers, yeah. It's a surprise to me, man.
So our pit crew's top four. Oh, Michael's having some fun back there on the table. So
We never said we were a good podcast.
kind of our final four in the upper bracket, we had Steamworks, Stronghold, Cresendo, Charged Up, Ultimate Ascent, Rapid React finished, then that tied for fifth. They were advancing up through the lower bracket, didn't make it past our top four from the upper. Charged Up fourth place, Stronghold third, Steamworks second, Cresendo taking home the victory. So I will say I'm not really. Well, I was definitely surprised Charged Up got the amount of love it did based on everyone else's thoughts.
Are you though? It's a recent game.
I
and
mean, that is true,
Yeah.
right?
we have observed that the more recent games
More
are
recent
more
games to-
popular.
But Rapid React, I mean, I guess it made it up into.
Oh,
that
so I don't
fifth,
even
but
see Reefscape, which is
Reefscape was out. I think
you guys
to and
already
out.
mentioned
yeah.
that. That
Yeah.
was weird.
yeah,
But
It wasn't a bad game. It was just
It's just boring.
yeah,
yeah.
I kind of
Um,
do wish Rapid React would have moved a little further into the brackets and for most of us, but yeah.
I think Stronghold or Steamworks over Stronghold. I can't. Well, I guess I did put it over Stronghold once myself, but the more I think about it, the more I can't get behind it just because of the strategic problems of Steamworks.
I'm surprised at Ultimate Ascent losing to Charged Up. What the heck? You want a pick and place game over the best shooting climbing game, unique game piece ever?
The problem is
That's crazy.
Everyone's like, nobody knows what that is.
Yeah.
Which is the sad reality
Kids,
of it.
man, it's the kids.
I think it'd be interesting to find people who've been doing first for 12 plus years. I don't know how far back. We could go even further if we find like that group of volunteers, mentors who've done it for so long, have them do like an AP top 25 type thing to get,
Yeah.
You know, the old people.
If they
on
say
here.
like, 2005 better than some of our games that we like, yeah.
We should
it'd be
ask
interesting.
John about his opinions.
Yeah,
Or
John's been
BMO or
doing this a
Clint
long
or
time.
long
BMO.
Kyle.
Yeah.
There's definitely some people we could put something together in aggregate. Could be
Yeah.
a fun
Jim.
side project
Allison.
at some point.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But any other thoughts?
Cresendo, I'm fine with winning. Charged Up shouldn't be there. Steamworks, it's okay. It's okay. Everything else, I think it's fine. I'm not surprised. I think it's okay. I think Pit Crew did a good job. It ended up okay. You know, I don't agree with quite everything, but I'm okay with it. You know,
Trying to be on top is
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yep.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
What do you about you, Ian? Bleh.
I think, well, Cresendo obviously came out number one for me. And like I said, I think it gave you kind of the best of everything. You had the power up gimmick, but I think executed better with the amp. You had kind of like 2015 when you used to have to throw pool noodles and things like that with the human player. It wasn't worth many points, but the high notes was a fun little thing for the audience to watch. And it wasn't so powerful that if, a student messed up, like they'd get crucified by their teammates or something.
True, yeah.
And I think two different ways to score. It was an interesting game piece. I think it was relatively well balanced. I think the trap was an interesting component to just throw another wrinkle in as well to think about while you're designing and strategizing.
Mhm.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Crescendo.
The note counter broke occasionally too. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Delightful. Well,
Okay.
it's been a fun tournament that we've ran here.
Yeah. Quite the journey.
Yep, we're going to look
So-
forward to doing this again next year. Maybe we'll do something with the game pieces in the meantime. We'll do
Ooh,
a
best game piece.
best game piece tournament bracket. We could do a best of volunteer shirt
What if we
tournament
did
bracket.
like best film off season?
Best film off season
We could do
tournament
that.
bracket.
Yeah,
Pretty
do
good
that.
one.
That would be fun. Let us know in the comments what bracket you want to see next. Also, let us know if you agree with or disagree with any of our picks.
Yeah. Sound off. Great
Yeah.
place to
Sound off,
discuss.
pop off. Yep.
Flame off.
Like,
do everything.
Subscribe,
Just stay
share the
graciously
video.
professional.
Yep.
Thank you for us for joining.
Thank you for us for joining. We've got new merch. If you guys haven't seen the intro yet, new merch is now
TV.
out now.
The screen that's
on
been
the
running
screen.
for literally the entire episode.
Well, I don't know
Yeah.
if people see that, but the new merch is
can't
out
really
now.
read the text
The
half the time.
merch out now on shop.pitpodcast.com. You can get this
Powered by Royal Shirtery.
powered by Royal Shirteries.
Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and make sure to put in a request for a cameo. Haven't got much of those.
I'll do whatever you want. That's reasonable. on
We're
Cameo.
running out of money. Send
Like,
us more
subscribe,
money.
comment. Anything else I'm forgetting?
No, we'll just see you in the
Sound
next
off.
one.
We'll see you,
See you at the
Pit Crew.
competition.
Balls deep.
1 hour, baby.